Hello everyone, welcome to my first Made with Magic video. I have a really special video here for you guys. I'm really excited to kick this video series off, and I decided the best way to kick this off, especially for the Halloween season, with one of the first things that I made. Yes, it's already made. I am going to show you kind of how I did it, and I'm going to give this guy a little bit of refurb, but I just wanted to show you guys the first thing that I've made for Halloween. Well, first bigger thing that I've made. I made a few things in the past, but they were just flat and made out of wood, and you'll see that later. But I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about this that I've made here. If you can't recognize it already, it is the Spiral Hill from The Nightmare Before Christmas. And every year for the past 12 years now, we have been doing the graveyard from The Nightmare Before Christmas. And for the first 10, we have had a flat spiral hill. That's just a piece of wood. The first one, and I'll be throwing some images here, the first one was probably about this high. It was one piece of wood that I cut out in the shape of the hill. Not that impressive. Well, in my opinion, it wasn't that impressive. But the neighborhood seemed to love it, and after a few years, it kind of caught on. And then want to say 5 to 7 years in, maybe even 8 years in, I redid it because that one was started getting old and started to fall apart, and I wanted it to be bigger. That year I did want it to be 3D, but I was having a hard time trying to figure out. I kind of had an idea on what I wanted to do and how it should be done, but the execution of it just wasn't happening. And that one ended up being 2 pieces of board, so it was taller. I think it was maybe about 8 feet tall, 7 or 8 feet tall. But it was also a lot thinner, and I didn't care for that one either. Last year, 2020, I had big plans to make all this other stuff, and because of COVID, I kind of put all of that on hold, and didn't really want to make anything because I wasn't sure where we were going to be for Halloween because of COVID. But my mom asked me one day, what are you going to do about the spiral hill? And I went, what are you talking about? She said, it's broken. And I went, oh, that would have been great. This was like August that she was telling me this. And I was like, oh, great. Well, luckily, I had already drawn out some designs for everything that I wanted to build, including a new spiral hill, and I had thought it out better. And this is kind of what I came up with. So this is 6 feet tall. I am 5'8" for reference. And I think I originally designed this to be 10 feet wide, but as I was drawing it out on the wood, I didn't like the general shape it was kind of looking at, so it ended up being a little bit wider, and I think it came out to about 12 feet. I did design this for it to be transportable and storageable, if that is a word. And so what I did, you can kind of see here, I designed this to be in 3 separate pieces. So it comes apart pretty easily. You'll kind of see there. I don't have it really like set together now just for the video, but it's in 3 pieces and it's bolted together once it's all set up. It's freestanding, there's nothing else really supporting this, but sometime, I think we did last year put something behind it just in case the wind got really heavy and decided to knock this over, but I think we didn't even need it. Generally, my biggest thing that I wanted to do was make this as light as I could, and it is very light. Like this part I can move by myself. The other 2 pieces you need 2 extra people just because they're bigger pieces and awkward to maneuver, but they're hollow. So the way that I made this, I took 3 pieces of plywood, like the recyclable one, whatever was cheaper at the time, which because of COVID, wood prices went up, so it wasn't that cheap to make. So 3 pieces of wood. I had this drawing and I was really happy with the way this drawing looked. So I took a bunch of measurements of this picture, and as you'll see, and scaled it up. I knew I wanted this to be 6 feet tall, and that's what it was going to be. at least. Like I said, it ended up being a little bit wider than I anticipated, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, so I took all these measurements and just scaled it up. I can't remember the scale. I think I wrote it down on the paper, in which I'll put it here if I find it. And took those 3 pieces of plywood, drew out everything, kind of fixed it if the silhouette of it didn't look quite right, like I said, bumped things out and cut those, and that was my starting point. And then I thought, okay, how do I make this 3D? So I took some more wood. I tried to use as much as like scraps that I had, because you know I have all of this here and from other places, and kind of cut them out how far I knew I wanted this to be, which I think is about 2 or 3 feet out from the back. And so I did that as a base. And then for this top piece, I have pieces going this way to bump this out, and I covered it in chicken wire. Now this part here is actually, I think the wood pieces that I put in ends about here, and then the rest of this is all just foam. The bottom 2, I think I have, and you'll see in the images, I have one piece that goes vertical and some pieces that go horizontal, just to help support and, you know, bump that out with the chicken wire. Then after I was done with that, I spray coated it in spray foam. I got some right here. Just the regular great stuff. I don't know if I used this one. I think there's a black can. I think I might have used that one. But I don't know if it was even necessary, the difference between these. But I think I used 21 cans, maybe 25. It was something around. I think I bought 25 cans and I ended up not using them. I think I had like 2 or 3 left over. But I spray coated it in those, let it sat for a couple days, I think. Came back to it. With the spray foam, you get like these bumps on it, so it's not completely smooth. And so I took a horsehair comb and tried to like bump all that off and make it a little bit smoother. After it was all bumped down and pretty much how I liked it, I got a sander and sanded it smooth as possible. I was on a bit of a time crunch, so I didn't get it completely smooth as I would have wanted, but did what I could with my time. And either way, I was like, you know what? I have the skeleton of this. I can refurb this as many times as I want, because that's the hardest part of this. Covering this and redoing it is going to be the easiest part. So after I sanded it all down, I went over it in Monster Mud. I'll leave a link to in the description to the video I used, the recipe for the Monster Mud, and that is a good explanation of what Monster Mud is, because I can't give you the greatest explanation of it. Anyway, covered it in Monster Mud. I went back over it because I was like, this is too smooth. The texture of it was coming too smooth, and if you know The Nightmare Before Christmas well enough, you'll know that the Spiral Hill is kind of like raked. It has this texture on it. So I took that horsehair comb and went over the Monster Mud as I was coating it, and it was getting these really great scrapes, which I ended up loving. Then after I coated it in the Monster Mud and had it dry for, I think I did it for 24 hours, it was ready to be painted, and we just painted it in a black exterior paint. Which it looks great. Like right now, this looks great in the regular lighting. At night, this was very hard to light. I had to put much more lighting on this than I usually did, which brings us to this video, in which I am going to give this a new coat of black paint. Because as this was in storage, you can see some parts of it expanded, like over here, and kind of tore open a little bit. So we're gonna get that fixed today, and then do a bit of dry brushing around the edges, specifically a gray paint, just to help it stand out better in the lighting, because the one issue that I was having with the light was it was making it look flat, and I was like, I put so much effort into this just for it to look flat. Unless you came up to it, but from the street, you couldn't tell that this was 3D. So that's what I want to fix today. Originally what I did when we painted this was we sprayed it down. I think it took a gallon and a half. I don't even think it took a gallon to completely spray this but I don't have the sprayer today, and I'm doing this by myself, so I'm going to use a brush. And this is the same paint that we used last year, which is a Sherwin-Williams A100 trusted 100% acrylic formula exterior acrylics latex paint, and it is in the shade Tricorn Black. So if you decide to use this later, that's the color that I use. So let's get into this. I'm going to give this a good shake and turn this into a time lapse, because I'm just going to be painting it. There's nothing special about it other than that. And then I'm going to come back and do the dry brushing in the gray. Alright, now that it's completely painted and dried for the most part, we're going to take some black paint and some white paint and I'm going to start off with a darker gray and dry brush the edges, and I think I'm just going to let it kind of fade into the black in the middle. I'm more wanting the outside to have a gray dry brush and to help it give it more dimension than the middle part. But I think I'm going to start off with a dark gray, and then we're going to see from there if I decide I want a lighter gray, if I like it, if I don't, because if I don't like it, I have plenty of black paint to go back over it again. So let's see how this works. Alright, so I'm pretty pleased at how this looks. I know from far away you can't really tell that much of a difference, but up close the texture on this looks so much better. I actually like how it brings out the raking a little bit more. I feel like it gives off more of that burden aspect. I ended up deciding to cover the whole thing in a gray, but then I did a lighter gray around the sides to help highlight the edges at least. We will see how this looks when it is out in the yard and lit, and if I need to make any changes. So if you stay tuned, you will see that video of the setup for the yard, and you will see how this turns out at night. And yeah, I will see you in the next video.